It's an interesting question, isn't it? The straight person is supposed to think that through and suddenly come to realize, well, gee, I didn't really choose my orientation, it chose me. And then in that instant, suddenly realize that that's how it is for everybody. You see, there's two very different and competing points of view that are in play here. Whatever your orientation might happen to be, if you chose it, then you are on some level, you can now be held accountable for having made that choice. This makes a lot of people uncomfortable because it leads to judgment. And there are a lot of people in this country who would sit in judgment of the alternative orientation and say that it's wrong, and say that people who have made that choice are wrong. And they'll use all sorts of things to support that rationale, everything from the Bible to their church to traditional values to the whole thing, all in a shameless attempt to make that person feel somehow less than, so that they can in turn feel better than. And this amounts to a gross stifling of freedom of expression. But just as stifling, on the other hand, is this. What about those people who really did make a choice, who can actually identify a very specific moment in which they made a conscious choice to embrace a certain orientation? It happens all the time. 9, 10-year-old kids will see some image on television, or maybe even in real life, and all of a sudden, in a split second, go from things that would never have even occurred to them to notice. Now, all of a sudden, not only do they notice them, but they find it difficult to think about anything else at all, ever again, for the next 10 or 15 years. I'm just saying, is all. And also, what about those people who really could go one way just as easily as they could another, but they really do make a conscious decision to embrace one orientation over the other? What about those people? My point with all this is simply this. In some cases, you don't choose your orientation. But in other cases, you do, and either way, that should be okay. And for those people who did choose an orientation, it should be just as okay for them to be able to step up and say, yeah, I made this choice. I made it on this date. I'm glad I made it, and I stand by it, whatever it is. I hope that helped. And I'll be back again soon with more. Until next time, this has been your good friend Steve, just calling for a little common sense and more freedom of expression out there. We can never have enough of that. Steve out.